This Tuesday, November 28th, NBA in-season betting picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by BetRivers. Claim a risk-free bet of up to $500 over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetRivers. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetRivers. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Plus, this Monday and Tuesday, everything is 20% off in the merch store with the promo code CYBER. That's CYBER, store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com, and use that promo code CYBER for today only, 20% off in the merch store. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Tuesday, November the 28th, currently 11:10 on the East Coast, here to get into the final day of the group stage play for the NBA in-season tournament. And joining me here to help me break it all down, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast, the MLB, of course, here on the NBA, and, of course, the NFL as well. It's Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man?
No, nothing much. Looking forward to the games today. I know this is one of the final days of the group stage. It's been a pretty interesting tournament so far. I feel like most people like it after criticizing the concept of it before it started.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it could be better executed, but it is the first trial run, so I think it will be improved moving forward. Overall, not bad. I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if it was last Friday or last Tuesday, like some of the games that were going like right down to the wire. I think that at that point it felt like it was, an actual like tournament that the players actually cared about. Or I think that people, more importantly, the players were kind of getting up to speed, because I know like at the beginning of when the group stage initially started, a lot of players didn't know what the hell was going on and what they had to do. But I think, like you mentioned, it's turned into a pretty good tournament. I'm sure they're going to make some tweaks on it if they want to keep it next season. But yeah, it's the last day. I did pull up a sheet. We'll kind of go through, obviously we'll handicap every game here, and I'll kind of throw out the scenarios on what each team needs that's still alive, at least, to advance to the knockout round. And we'll break down those scenarios and how that may affect our handicapping, whether it's side total, player props, or the case might be. But I'm pretty sure you have a rant from last night, so we're gonna call this the Scott's rant here. So I think I already know where you're probably going with this, but I'm gonna give you the floor.
Well, there's two teams to talk about, but one team we already know was bad. That's the Pistons. I'm not going to bother with them. But shout out to them for losing at home to Washington by double digits. So that's not a good look for Monty and for the Pistons. I think they've lost, 12 straight at the moment?
What is that? Yeah, like 2-15 now? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's not good. And Cade's been healthy, so not exactly a good look. But the main one I got to talk about, of course, was the late game. Because if I told you the number 56, what would be the first thing on your mind?
The number 56 from the game last night between the Clippers and the...
Just in general.
I couldn't tell you.
So if it was baseball, you'd think of DiMaggio's hit streak. That's not what I'm talking about. 56 is the number of points in 2023 that Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan combined to score against.
I was going to say Reggie Jackson scored.
It was Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan combined. They scored 56 points last night. That is that's something. To tell you what, it's not good if you're the Clippers, but I don't know if I really need to rant on it, because I ranted initially when the trade happened, and I said I think the Clippers are going to miss the playoffs. And I can't even say that they got into better form lately, because they played San Antonio. Congrats. And the Rockets, no offense, are 0-for on the road. So they won that game. They didn't cover. But still, the point is they did win a game or two. This team's a disaster. There's really no way around it. They can't guard anybody, which is not a shock, because I know Westbrook's coming off the bench now, but Harden doesn't guard anyone. Even Paul George looked disinterested last night. I know that he went like, what did he go? 2 of 13 or something. I got to pull up the numbers, but he was terrible. Kawhi's been fine for the most part, but defensively he's not the same guy that he used to be. Zubac is, once again, a kind of guy that doesn't exactly guard well in the pick and roll because he's bigger and he's kind of a lumbering big man, which is growing more and more obsolete in today's NBA. But Paul George last night ended up going 2 for 13, scored 6 points. They got outscored by 20 on their home floor in the fourth quarter. In case you weren't aware of it, by the way, it wasn't even just Jokic. Jokic didn't play, Murray's still injured, and Aaron Gordon didn't play. So they lost to Reggie Jackson, DeAndre Jordan, and Michael Porter Jr. Got outscored by 20 at home in the fourth quarter. At some point, there's just words can't really describe it. You got to just read off the stats. Getting outscored 36-16 on your home floor in a game that you kind of, I don't want to say need to win because the Clippers are still a long way to go in the season, but you've been in kind of disaster mode for the last couple of weeks since the Harden trade.
Yep.
You lose this game. I mean, I don't have much more to add, but it tells you once again why I've been so low on the Clippers and why I think the Harden trade is one of the worst midseason trades that I've ever seen. I said it as soon as it happened. This loss in itself is comical on several levels, and I wanted to bring it up because losing this game under these circumstances is embarrassing, and I feel like people keep saying, or at least some people are saying, well, they'll figure it out. Ty Lue's going, yeah, well, it's a work in progress. No, this team just sucks. Like, I don't really have much more to add. I think that this team is not going to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, the odds plummeted already a couple weeks ago as they are now plus 115 to miss. This current construction, without any more trades, they will not make the playoffs. I'll tell you that much.
At what point do you think Kawhi and or Paul George demand a trade?
It's a good question because you have injury history with both. I don't know what the market is for Kawhi. Paul George has been healthy at times, and I know that Kawhi, his ceiling made him at times a top 3 player in the league. Yeah. We saw that with his Raptors run. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't trade for Kawhi. Would you trade for Kawhi? I don't know how many games he lasts per season.
Yeah,
and his contract in itself, I don't know what you'd actually be willing to give up to get him.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest hurdle is the contracts that both of those guys have. And I think now looking at it in hindsight, I think that the Paul George trade is probably the worst, one of the worst, if not the worst trade that has gone down in NBA history with the Thunder and the Clippers. And then I think we can.
I know that trade's up there with KG and Paul Pierce. That's definitely
I don't think they give up like a lot for Harden, but I think that true basketball fans know that when Harden came into this organization or any other organization after he went to the Rockets, it kind of goes south very quickly. And I think for right now, the Clippers are kind of at that bottom of the barrel. Like you mentioned, they'll beat up on the weaker opponents that did that against the San Antonio Spurs, but who's doing that right now or who's not doing that right now? But yeah, I don't know, man. I think anytime you see the Clippers favored, you just got to fade them 100%. And again, just because of the names that are on this roster, they're going to be favored more times than not in their games. But I think also, Scott, you mentioned Reggie Jackson last night. He did it in a very efficient way as well, like 15 of 19 from the floor. I don't know if a lot of people were watching the game or not, but he was absolutely cooking James Harden and getting to the basket fairly easily in that game. So, yeah, I mean, like I wasn't shocked at the result last night, even without Jokic and Gordon. I mean, it's typical at this point for this team. But yeah, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to be clear about the Kawhi contract situation, he does have an opt-out after this year. His player option is about $48 million, but with the actual salary cap going up and with the amount others are getting paid, I'm assuming he's going to opt out. I don't know if he actually it's kind of tricky. I'm assuming one team would probably give him a couple years and more money. But with the injuries he's had, I don't think it's as foregone of a conclusion as people might think. But one bad team's going to be desperate enough, but Kawhi would want to play for them.
Yeah, I think does he go across the street to or across the hallway to the Lakers? I mean, do the Lakers have a package that they can put together for Kawhi? Yeah, and that's another question. Can they afford him? So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think I just wanted to kind of throw out there that if there's a scenario that it comes to the trade deadline, even this year, that, they just absolutely blow it up. Maybe I think the scapegoat might be Russell Westbrook, as he has been all throughout his career. But
Scapegoat's going to be Ty Lue mid-season, by the way. Like, if they don't turn it around at all, Ty Lue's going to be fired because they have to blame
But who's
somebody,
even on
and they
their
don't.
bench? Like, do they make
The ownership doesn't want to admit that they've made some of the worst trades of all time, and they're just compounding the issue. But we see this all the time. We saw it, for example, with in the NFL, Frank Reich. Now, Frank Reich is an abysmal head coach, at least with Carolina.
Yeah.
Is it his fault the roster's abysmal and that they ended up giving up like a decent amount of draft capital to draft the wrong quarterback with the first pick in the draft? No, it's not his fault, but he's
Yeah.
going to get blamed for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Scott, before we get into the actual games here for tonight, let me tell everyone about Bet Rivers. We're brought to you by Bet Rivers. Bet Rivers is available in over 14 states plus Ontario, Canada. Bet Rivers has some of the best live betting markets in the space. Their betting menu is second to none, including a ton of props. Depositing and withdrawing is super easy on Bet Rivers. Sign up with our link to get a risk-free bet up to $500. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betrivers. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betrivers. Problem gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Scott, let's get into the tournament games here for tonight. Again, like I mentioned, the last day of the tournament games here. And we'll start it off here with an Eastern Conference battle between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. Currently, as it stands, the Bucks are a 3-point favorite with a total of 227 in this game. Let me pull up the injury report here for today. The latest one should be for 10:30. Yep. Let's see here. All right.
This
So
game
for the
actually
Milwaukee,
matters. So
yeah. So for the Milwaukee Bucks, Jay Crowder is out. We know Chris Middleton is officially listed as questionable here tonight. And then for the Miami Heat, Bam is probable with questionable tags. Bam's probable and Duncan Robinson's probable, and then questionable tags on Jimmy Butler and Haywood Highsmith for the Miami Heat. Let me find that page where I had the scenarios for what needs to transpire here tonight for some of these teams. Scott, while you give your handicap.
yeah, for me, point is Milwaukee's going to have to care about this game because they have not officially wrapped up the group. So I do think that Milwaukee's going to come out and win this game. Miami's made games interesting against Milwaukee, as of course we saw the playoff round last year. But I do think that the Bucks are the better team. The problem that I have with Miami in this matchup is the fact that even though the Bucks are not great defensively, I still don't think Miami's that good offensively. So I do think
Mhm.
that Milwaukee can outscore this team. Milwaukee did win the first meeting of the season by 8. Very misleading scoreline. Miami had a massive run in the fourth quarter to make the game interesting. Milwaukee was up by about 20 in that game, probably more. They got outscored by 16 in the fourth quarter. Milwaukee led by as big as they had a lead of 25 points in that game. So Milwaukee I've already seen dominate, at least matchup wise, against this team. I'm going to lean to Milwaukee. I know that people might be tempted by Miami in this particular matchup because of the playoff history and because of what happened last year. But looking at the actual roster, the fact that Hero is still out and the fact that Butler, as of right now, is questionable, I'm assuming he's going to play, but you never know with Miami. That's why they're a very annoying team to bet on or against on a regular basis because they wait until the last minute to announce the actual injury report. But I do think looking at the spot, I'm going to lean to Milwaukee. Maybe there's a little extra chip on their shoulder based on what happened in the playoffs last year, where Milwaukee knows they cannot overlook this team under any circumstance. I'm going to lean to Milwaukee. It seems like they have cared more about this actual tournament than most teams. Milwaukee's actually the betting favorite to win the tournament, which I think is pretty telling because the Celtics, for example, have better odds to win the Eastern Conference and to win the NBA Finals, but the Bucks are the betting favorite to win the tournament. So for me, that tells me that the odds makers actually believe Milwaukee cares more than the other teams. That's good enough for me. I'll link to Milwaukee laying a short number.
Yeah, so the scenario for the Milwaukee Bucks is they can qualify to the knockout stage or the quarterfinals, whatever you want to call it, with two different scenarios. So the simple one is they win and they clinch the group. And then the second scenario for them to clinch the group is a victory by the Knicks, and then Milwaukee wins the tiebreaker over the Knicks and the Miami Heat. So the tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker, I think this was maybe something me and you talked about, or me and Terrell talked about, was it's point differential first. That's the tiebreaker. So, yeah, I'm with you. I like Milwaukee here minus the 3. And again, for tiebreaker scenarios, I expect them to put out, get as many points up as possible, because if you watch some of these games that happen on the, the Tuesday night and the Friday night schedule, these teams know that you need that point differential. And I mean, last Friday is a case in point where I think it was both
With
the Denver
the Larry
Nuggets.
Nance dunk and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they're still keeping their starters out there with like a minute and a half left, with some of these teams were out by like 12, 13 points, knowing that they need that point differential here. So, long story short, give me Milwaukee minus the 3 here. Total sitting at 227 here. Scott, any thoughts on the total?
I want to lean over because Milwaukee can't guard anybody. But the question is, with the stakes involved, because it's the final play-in group stage game, am I expecting more of a playoff atmosphere? Which is why you can make an argument that it's a dangerous idea, but conceptually, since these games do matter a lot to some teams, assuming that both teams actually care about the games, wouldn't you expect more of a playoff atmosphere just in general? So wouldn't you be
I would,
more,
yeah.
yeah, wouldn't you be more inclined to lean to an under in this type of spot?
Yeah.
So I'm going to lean under. Do I feel great about it? No. Milwaukee doesn't guard anybody. I'm aware of that. But I do think that Miami's still playing for something, right? They have not been eliminated. So this game is going to matter for both teams.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna lean to the under in this game, hoping for more of a playoff atmosphere. It's dangerous, but I definitely don't want to take the over in the spot because Miami doesn't exactly play lights out offense anyway. Head to head, by the way, is the initial tiebreaker followed by point differential. So that is
Okay.
definitely worth mentioning. But I do think looking at this overall spot, I might be leaning to a lot of unders today. It is the final matchups of the first round of the group stage.
Right.
And I do think that you're going to see maybe referees swallow their whistles a bit more. Bit
Mhm.
of a gamble by me, but I'm going to lean to the under for some amount of these games.
Yeah, so Milwaukee, pretty much like we mentioned, they're in the driver's seat, right? They're 3-0 in the tournament thus far. They've been averaging 123.7 points in the group stage, while giving up 110 as well. And they have a point differential right now of plus 13. And again, obviously they've won every single game in the stage. So, and then the Knicks and the Heat are both sitting at 2-1 in their scenarios. And right now, Milwaukee does have that huge point differential as well. So keep that in mind, like Scott mentioned, whether if you're betting, totals here tonight, under may just be the way here tonight. But again, I think that there may be value in those second half overs, because so like I mentioned, some of these teams do need those point differentials for those tiebreakers as
Yeah,
well.
some of these teams
All right.
do. Milwaukee doesn't care. They just need to win the game.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right. All right, let's get over to the next game here, Scott. Another Eastern Conference matchup. We got the Charlotte Hornets. They are in they're in New York, taking on the New York Knicks. So Knicks currently as a 12-point favorite in this game with a total of 221. Looking at the injury report here for both of these teams. For the Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball is doubtful here tonight. He suffered a high ankle strain
I'll
right
be out for a
ankle
couple
is,
weeks.
yeah, official qualification, his yearly ankle injury. James Boatnight is probable here tonight. He's coming off a left knee surgery. Cody Martin is out. Frank Ntilikina is out. And Nick Richards continues to be out as well. He is in concussion protocol. For the New York Knicks, pretty clean injury report. Nobody of significance is on there. And then let's take a look at the scenario here for the New York Knicks. So Knicks clinch Group B. If the following occurs, they get the victory plus a Milwaukee loss, and then New York wins tiebreaker over Milwaukee and Miami. And then they also clinch a wild card spot if one of the following occurs. They get a victory plus a Miami loss, plus a Cleveland loss, plus a Boston loss, plus a Brooklyn loss. I mean, I'm not going to go through everything because it's just going to confuse people. They just need to come out and win this game and then hope the chips fall in their favor here. So Scott, minus 12 right now against the Charlotte Hornets team. That's going to be without LaMelo Ball, but they do see the return of Terry Rozier.
So this is the type of spot that I know Terrell would blindly consider taking Charlotte, because why would the Knicks be laying 12? I know that Terrell, I can imagine him just saying there's no way I'm laying 12 with the Knicks in the spot. I am. I'm going to lay 12. I think Charlotte's terrible. And the only, you can argue, saving grace of this team was LaMelo offensively, because LaMelo's had a really good year. And I have to point it out. Now, I've been critical of LaMelo in the past. I've called him a stats-based player who doesn't
Mhm.
exactly do the little things to win games, and I still stand by that. But I have to at least point out, compared to the rest of the roster, LaMelo is the only player worth a damn on this team, besides Mark Williams, who's been solid as well. But the point is, LaMelo, him being out, I don't know what I even like about the Charlotte team anymore. Like, there's nothing to like about this team. Even if you watch them with LaMelo, his assist numbers this year have had some hit or miss performances, not because of LaMelo's ball hogging, but because nobody can hit a jump shot. And I do think that you're looking at a spot where, even though Rozier's coming back, you can argue for some player props if you want to kind of balance it out between the Knicks dominating and who might show up for Charlotte. I don't mind Brandon Miller having a decent game, maybe Rozier threes. But there's really nothing to like about the Charlotte team with LaMelo being out. And you mentioned before the Knicks have to win. They faced off a couple weeks ago, and the Knicks curb stomped them in
Yeah.
MSG. I see a pretty similar story here. I do think that you're looking at the Knicks probably winning this game comfortably. Charlotte has nothing to play for. They've been eliminated basically since the event started. I'm not sure if they've even won a game in the tournament. But now LaMelo is out, and they don't have much to look forward to in general. The season's basically over already at this point, and LaMelo's now out for 4 weeks or so, 3-4 weeks. I'm going to go with the Knicks. I think they bury this team. They better. I'm just saying, because they have all the momentum. They have all of the motivation. The Hornets have none of that, and LaMelo's out. How's this team going to score? I know that the Knicks offensively have been a bit hit or miss at times, pretty much
Mhm.
decent so far this season. Defensively is always Thibodeau's calling card. Who do you trust on the Charlotte team to actually score?
I think the only guy that would come to mind is Terry Rozier, but he's come. I think this is his first game back from injury as well, for the Charlotte Hornets.
I thought he played a game or two, but the point is, either way,
Let me
that
check.
Charlotte doesn't exactly have many guys that scare you. Bridges has been okay since he came back. Shouldn't be playing in the first place, but whatever. Brendan Miller maybe has he had 22 against the Magic, so this is his second game. Rozier
Okay.
coming
Yeah.
back, but the point is, I'm going to lean to the Knicks. They have to win this game. Charlotte did win a game apparently because they beat the Wizards. Congratulations. You still have no chance of actually making it out of the group stage. So give me the team that's motivated at home against the team missing its best player. I'm going to take the Knicks to win this game by probably 20.
Yeah, like you mentioned, these two teams did match up earlier this season where Knicks won 129-107 in one game, and then they won 122-109. So I think this is a game where I'm with you on the Knicks here, but I think my more favorite play might just be the Knicks team totals in this game to go over. Whether you want to go first quarter, first half, or full game. Like you
And they
mentioned,
need the point differential,
yeah,
potentially.
and this team is
Yeah.
absolutely terrible, right? They're dead last in defensive rating for the season. So I'll try to find that number on give me a second. Let me see if I can find it here. But I was just kind of going back and looking at how Charlotte has done in New York actually. So head to head overall, the Knicks have won 4 of the last 5 games, and they've put up 134, 121, 105 in a loss. And like I mentioned, 129 and 122 just alone this season. So um yeah, I'm on the Knicks here as well. Let me see if we can find a team total for the Knicks here. 116 and a half at minus 120. I'll definitely
And they
take
scored
that
120
for.
plus in the first 2 meetings.
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Total, I already mentioned I'm already on the Knicks team total. Do you have a feel for the full game total, or are you just looking at Knicks team total?
It would have to be over, if anything, but I can't take it with LaMelo being out. So I'd rather do what you did, which is completely ignore Charlotte entirely and just take the
Yeah.
Knicks to show up in a game that they need to win by margin. So I'll go with the Knicks team total over as well.
Player props. I don't think I asked about that in the Heat and Bucks game. Or sorry, yeah, the Heat and Bucks game. But Hornets and Knicks, anything as far as player props?
The thing is, I'm worried about a blowout, but the
Yeah.
Knicks, are they just going to run up the score? Are they blowout proof in this game because they need to get some differential?
I would think they play like 45 of the 48 minutes, honestly. Like if they
You think
need
they
the
play that much?
points. I mean, if they're up by like 20 with 3 minutes left, I think that's maybe when they pull the starters at that point. But and because I think this game is going on at the same time as the Heat and the Milwaukee game,
Just to
if I'm
ask, by
not
the way, if
mistaken.
the Knicks win this game, do they
Mhm.
automatically clinch a spot, or they also need to rely on point differential still?
So I think there's a couple scenarios where, because the problem right now is that, okay, the Bucks get in if they win, right? They'll
Yeah.
clinch the group, obviously,
I'm
but
assuming it's interesting if Miami wins. Then it gets very interesting.
yeah, then it gets interesting. But for the Knicks, I think that they'll go to 3-1 if they do get the victory here tonight, and then I think that's when the head-to-head matchups and the point differential come into play for a wild card spot.
They
I
beat
think
the
there's
Knicks. They beat the Heat, though, right?
the Knicks did.
I did. Did
Let
they
me
not beat
see
the Heat?
here. So yeah, they beat the Heat on Friday.
So they have the breaker. Okay.
Yeah. So they got a 2-point victory against him. And that was the game where me and Sean were watching, which were out in Vegas. That game felt like a playoff atmosphere game. That was one of the lower scoring games of 198. But I
So
mean,
since
going
the
up
Knicks
against
won that game, if they win, they're in.
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I'll put this in the Discord channel where I found the tweet of all the different scenarios. I mean, it's like a whole paragraph. I think I'll just, I'll make the listeners' ears bleed if I read all of it here. But the first one is the one that's simple, is that they'll clinch the group if the Knicks win and Milwaukee loses, and then the Knicks win the tiebreaker over Milwaukee and Miami, which I think is probably just point differential because they beat Miami already. And I think they lost to Milwaukee.
So that's why it gets weird, because if Miami beats Milwaukee, you have a three-way tie for first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Or at least that's my
Yeah.
understanding. Okay. Um. So yeah, I just think the Knicks are going to bury him. Point is, there's a lot of reasons for the Knicks to want to win this game, and
Yeah.
Charlotte has no reasons to really care besides pride. And you could argue emotionally they're going to be spent after Lamelo got injured. So yeah, I'm going to go with the
Mm.
Knicks.
All
And
right.
for props,
Yeah.
I'm assuming the starters are going to play a decent amount. I don't know who's going to guard Brunson on this entire Hornets team. I think he's in line for a big game. We saw him go off against the Heat. Randall double-double has been good to me this season. Even though Randall has had an issue scoring, recently he's gotten better at it, but rebounding going there for him. And I do think he's in line for a good game. I feel like a lot of people like Mark Williams over for the Hornets, but I actually don't like the matchup. I think Mitchell Robinson's actually going to give him some problems. And I wonder about foul trouble, because the Knicks aren't afraid
Yeah.
to go into the rim quite often. We know that Brunson's not afraid to foul bait on occasions. I'm going to lean to, once again, Knicks props more. I don't mind maybe a Brandon Miller over, because even if they are getting killed, he is still a rookie. Maybe just throw him out there and let him just learn, just get some experience out there. But it's mostly going to be Knicks props for me.
Yeah. So the first matchup in New York between these two teams, RJ Barrett had 24, Julius Randle had 23, and Jalen Brunson had 20. Emmanuel quickly off the bench had 17 and 9.
Pretty
And
sure they
then,
benched most of the starters, though, with like 8 minutes to go in the game.
yeah. And then LaMelo Ball in that game had 32 points. And then the second matchup, just to put into context here, in Charlotte, the Jalen Brunson had 32 points and 7 assists. Julius Randle had 21 and 8. Dante DiVincenzo had 25 in that game. And yeah, and then for the Hornets, LaMelo Ball had 34 in that game. So I'm looking at, I guess Terry Rozier would be my pivot off of him. He's at 19 and a half here for tonight. I'll take a look at Terry Rozier over 19 and a half points. But other than that, I mean, Miles Bridges at 21 and a half. So I think my pivot would be Terry Rozier here tonight over 19 and a half points.
I mean, if you wanted a potential long shot prop, the odds aren't great because the Knicks are already favored by 12. I
Mhm.
can really see the Knicks winning by like 30. If you want to take the massive blowout approach, 31 plus is like 7-1. It's a little
Okay.
cheap for that type of, once again, wager, but they are favored by a ton. I really just see a lot of scenarios where Charlotte goes, "Why are we even here?" And the Knicks just go,
Yeah.
"Oh, we got to outscore them by 30. All right, sure." And I just think they're going to win the game comfortably. If the Knicks show up, they should win this game by 30.
Okay. Before we get over to the next game on the board here, Scott, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy provides a way for you to play alongside some of your favorite fantasy players, whether it's in the NFL, it's in the NBA, NHL, college basketball, or college football. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players, fantasy stats, and cash in. My favorite underdog pick'em for today is going to be Terry Rozier, higher on his points. That's at 19.5. We'll put together a underdog fantasy entry here for tonight at the end of the episode, so stay tuned for that. So you can also watch along with our picks, or you can make your own picks and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website. Go to underdogfantasy.com. When you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy using promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, a sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, Scott, let's get over to the next game on the schedule. That's going to be the Atlanta Hawks. They are in Cleveland here tonight. Cleveland currently sitting as a 4-point favorite. Total is at 237.5 in this game. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the let's start here with the Hawks. Pretty clean injury report. Only guy that is going to be out for a significant amount of time is going to be Jalen Johnson, and that's a little unfortunate because he was having a really good season for the Atlanta Hawks. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, pretty clean injury report. Only Dean Wade is out with the right ankle sprain, and that is pretty much it. All right, so for this game, I don't see any. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I do. So, God, this is going to get complicated. So Atlanta clinches a wild card if the following occurs. If they win and New York loses and Miami loses and Boston loses and Brooklyn loses. So it looks like they're pretty much out for the Atlanta. So they're just out there. Okay. Yeah. And then same thing for Cleveland. They clinch a wild card if one of the following happens. They win, New York loses. I'll just stop right there. Okay. Or their second scenario is that if the Cleveland victory and they win tiebreakers over any of the second place teams for other groups with a 3-1 record. All right, so pretty much
we're assuming both teams are probably not going to make it.
Yeah, so for Cleveland, their only chance is that, again, they get the victory and they score a whole bunch of points here tonight. And if there's other teams that are 3-1 that also qualify for a wild card spot, then they'll just look at point differential. But Scott, let's start with the side here, -4 in favor of the Cleveland Cavaliers. What are you thinking about this game?
I really don't have much in this game. Full disclosure, I don't really like anything in this game. There are other games I care more about. But we basically just said these teams aren't officially eliminated, but indirectly they are. So I don't really know. Both teams are in the same spot. So you can make an argument that you will be getting a playoff type atmosphere, which might lean you to an under. The problem is the Hawks and an under don't exactly go well together. So that's why you're kind of on the fence with how you want to go about it. I think the Jalen absence is big. I think he's a good player. And I do think that he provided a nice spark either in the starting lineup or off the bench, and now he's not going to be available for it. I guess I'm leaning Cleveland at home. Okay. I guess. I don't feel great about it, but Atlanta has been pretty decent on the road this season. I think I'm going to lean to Cleveland and the under, believe it or not, but I actually don't want to bet on anything in this game, to be honest with you. I really don't like much.
Yeah, I had to do a double take when I saw the total in this game because...
Yeah, that's how I felt, because it's a lot with the Cavs being involved.
Yeah, and with Atlanta, they're 5-1-1 to the under in their road games this season. Like you mentioned, on the road, they've been pretty decent, at least better than they've been at home. 4-3 straight up, 4-3 against the spread, but that total is something that really sticks out to me. I know the Cavs had a high-scoring affair against the Lakers. I think, what was it, on Sunday, I believe? No, sorry, on Saturday night, but that game still ended up going under the total. I think both teams were in the 70s, and the game only ended up with 236 points, falling under this total of 237.5 right now. And then they responded on Sunday with a 105-102 win against the Raptors. So, yeah, I guess under for me as well. Feel like this line is pretty spot on. I'll lean with the Hawks here. Lean with the under, but again, I'm with Scott here. I'm not going to have any dollars on this game. Do you have any player props you want to throw out for this game?
I think Trey points is definitely worth a look. I've criticized Trey for his performance earlier this season because he was really bad efficiency-wise. He's been great the last week and change. He's been really, really
Yeah,
good. And it appears that
yeah.
he remembered how to shoot a three-pointer, which is important because he was struggling with his outside shot for about a year and a half. But
Hmm.
he's been really lately. So I think that you're looking at Trey points. DeJounte maybe points. I know he hasn't exactly had a great season so far, but the volume's going to be there. So if you want to go for him, I guess my question is with Jalen being out, who steps up the most for usage? And my guess would either be DeAndre Hunter or Bogdanovich. Probably
Hmm.
Bogdanovich because he's been that hybrid bench guy. So maybe Bogdan threes, but they're going to have to experiment
Sadiq
with the
Bey.
lineups now. So yeah, maybe Bay as well is a good call. So one of
Yeah,
those, but I'm going to wait and see how they experiment with their new rotations. But I do think that Bay or Bogdanovich is probably worth a look for extra minutes in this game. So maybe
yeah,
you want to take one of those guys.
yeah. Base points are at 12.5 right now. I kind of like the over on that, or either his 3 pointers are probably at 2.5. Then if his points are actually it's at 1.5 it's minus 130, but yeah, I
That's not
think
bad.
Sadiq. Yeah, I think that he would step up into that starting lineup or be the guy that gets the bulk of the minutes with Jalen Johnson gone. Now I know hasn't gotten over this number in 2 straight games for his 3 point shots, but um he's right on the cusp of getting over 12.5 points, or at least over the last 5 games. So yeah, all right, okay. Anything else, Scott, for this game?
No, not really. I'm going to lean under because I think this number is a bit high for a game that has a certain stakes amount to it. And I said before, I'm going to lean to a lot of unders for teams that care.
Yeah.
This does check
Okay.
that box. So I'm going to lean to the under.
Yep. All right, let's get over to the next game on the schedule. We have the Chicago Bulls. They are in Boston here tonight to take on the Celtics. Celtics are a 13.5 point home favorite with a total of 219.5. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams. For the Chicago Bulls, Alex Caruso and Zach LaVine are both questionable here tonight. And that's pretty much it for the Bulls. For the Boston Celtics, Drew Holiday is questionable. Porzingis is going to be out for this game, and Derek White is probable. So you have one guy that's out, one guy that's questionable, and one guy that is probable here tonight. So we'll see if Drew Holiday does end up playing in this game here. I think Boston. So for Boston, they clinch Group C if the following occurs. Number one, Boston wins tonight, plus the Brooklyn Nets win as well. And then Boston wins a tiebreaker over Orlando in Brooklyn. So I think that, let me see how they've done in the group so far.
They lost to
Let's
Orlando, but they
Okay, so
won
I
every
think they
other
would
game.
probably have to, yeah. These might need another scenario where they have to get points here tonight as well, because their point differential right now is 0.0. They've scored 108.3 points per game,
0.0. All right.
and they've given up 108.3 points per game. So, and there's a whole spiel again about if they can clinch a wild card spot. Again, like I mentioned, I'm not gonna make our listeners' ears bleed here. So they just need to go out and get the victory. And again, hope the chips fall into their way here, Scott. But the 13
Well,
and
it's
a
not
half
just
here for
that because the point differential is 0. So they don't need to win. They need to murder, basically,
yeah.
in this game.
So I think this might be another spot, like something like we talked about with the Knicks for their team total to go over here tonight. But let's start with the side here, minus 13.5 against the Chicago Bulls team. What do you think?
Yeah, Boston by 30. I'm not going to waste much time on this. I think Boston kills them. Looking at Chicago, this team is completely just it's over. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you want me to tell you. This team's
Disinterested is the
awful.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
devastated. Well, they should have blown the team up a couple of years ago, but to go through the last couple of games, they ended up losing to the Nets in their last game by, I believe it was either double digits or it was a 9. They lost by 9. In that game, the Bulls led by 20 plus points in the first quarter. They led by 21 points. They blew the lead in half a quarter. They were up 20 something points in the first quarter, then got outscored 44-19 in the second quarter, and they lost by 9. I think Boston wins by 30. They have all the momentum. Boston's about to, what I think is, once again, it's going to be ugly in this game. Chicago's players don't like playing with each other at this point. They're looking at LaVine, who's been rumored for trades. DeRozan's not the same guy that he used to be. He's fine, not the same guy. It is what it is. But Boston has every reason with the point differential to dominate and to continue dominating. If you want to parlay Celtics by 30 and Knicks by 30, I don't mind that idea. I might do that myself. But I do think that the Celtics, you might see this game cross over 35 at some point, maybe 40 at some point. Give me the Celtics by a colossal margin. I'll take the Celtics minus 13.5. I'll take the alt spreads, but give me the 31, or I should say minus 30.5 at like 6-1. I'm going to shop around, though, because it does sound a bit cheap, but it makes sense once again with the spread. But do I see the Bulls actually hang in there in this game? Absolutely not. I think they get buried.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this might be a spot where I take Boston first quarter, first half, and full game. So I know Boston has been a really good first quarter team, not just this season, but over the past several seasons. So this year, in the first quarter, to put into perspective here, Boston is the number one team as far as net rating in the first quarter. They have a plus 24 margin. And the second best team is the Sacramento Kings at 14.5. So they just come out and take care of business in that first quarter. They also have an offensive rating in that first quarter, Scott, of 124, which is 0.3 behind the Sacramento Kings, like I mentioned. And then they have the second best defensive rating, only behind shockingly, the LA Clippers in the first quarter. For the Chicago Bulls, their offensive rating is the second worst, and they have a net rating of minus 16, which is also the second worst, to only behind the LA Lakers. So first quarter line is at minus 4.5 right now. But again, I would not be surprised if the Celtics in this first quarter come out and put up 35 plus points. They're up by double digits. And also looking at their first half at minus 7.5, it's a big number. But again, this Chicago Bulls team, whether it's in the first quarter or first half, just have not been very good. And I think that they'll just keep the foot on the gas in the second half of this game here. So I think it's Boston in every which way here tonight. Look at their team totals to go over here as well. Like exactly what you mentioned, Scott. It's similar to what we'll probably see from the Knicks here tonight, going up against the Charlotte Hornets. So don't have any feel on the full game total here, Scott, but I'm going to be on the Celtics team totals over first quarter, first half, and full game.
Yeah, I don't. In generally, I don't think the Bulls have a chance. So yeah, I just think the Boston probably scores 130, give or take. I'm not sure it's going to be as bad as the Pacers game without Halliburton, where they scored 155, but it's going to be. It's going to be really.
Yeah. Any player props?
Is Boston just going to leave Tatum in when they're up 40 in the third quarter? Like they might.
At what number do you like if you're the head coach of the Boston
apparently
Celtics?
None. I mean, you have a point differential of 0.
Yeah, but if you're up by like
actually
40,
try to win this game by 40.
Yeah, but let's say you're up by like 40 with like 3 minutes left. Are you still like you have your start still out there?
I would purposefully run it up because DeRozan complained that who was the team that took the shot at the end of that game? The Bulls game. It was the
Toronto.
It was the Raptors. He got pissed at Siakam for taking shots because of the point differential thing. So because DeRozan complained about it since he doesn't know the rules, I kind of want to see them use the starters for the entire fourth quarter. I'm not going to say the entire thing, but I think Tatum's going to get some reps up 35. So
yeah, I think so too. Looking at his points prop here for tonight, and they just got wiped off the board. Or that's threes. So Tatum tonight, his points are at 28.5. Jaylen Brown is at 23.5. I'm actually intrigued on Al Horford rebounds tonight because he's going to be in that. Yeah, he's going to be in that starting lineup with KP on the shelf. His number's at 7.5 and minus 130 for his rebound, but I think you got to ladder that up to at least 10 because Chicago they gave it up to the center position as far as rebounds go. I'm trying to pull up that exact number here. Yeah, so they're allowing 15.9 rebounds to that center position. And Al Horford, let me see how he's done recently against the Bulls here. So, golly, he's been in the league since 2007. Jesus Christ.
Long time.
Not a lot there, but I think that, again, in this, just in the scenario that he's going to get the minutes here tonight, I think that he should be able to get over 7.5 rebounds for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the realm of 10 here tonight for the Boston Celtics. Any other player props you're looking at?
Yeah, I think this is the game where you can get a bit exotic with some of the props if you want to go for some long shots. I want to ask you, what do you think is more likely? Boston wins by 30 or Tatum scores 40? Because Boston to win by
Boston wins by
31.
30.
I was going to say that's 6-1. Tatum to score 40 is 7-1. That's why I'm asking. But I think Tatum's going to have a massive game. He's going to play a bunch of minutes. If you want to make an argument for Derek White double-double, I'm not going to give you an argument. I actually like that play quite a bit, especially for the value. And we think that the Celtics have a chance to run up the score and drop like 130 points potentially. But if you want to look for Derek White double-double, Derek White double-double is 12-1. Let's get weird with it. Yeah, give me Derek White double-double at 12-1. Starting point guard? Why not?
Someone just especially if Drew Holiday doesn't play, right? Because then Derek White is probably your primary ball handler at that point. He had 11 assists against the Atlanta Hawks. I think that was a game where Drew Holiday did not play for the Celtics.
He did not play. So I'm saying Holiday's questionable, so I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. But it's an ankle sprain. Like those take maybe a week or two to heal. He's missed 2 straight games. 12-1 for what can be a starting point guard, a guy that had a double-double last game. 12-1 is nuts. I'll take that easily.
Yeah, I agree. Kawan pointing out that Tatum rebounds too. I agree. He does rebound the ball well as well. He had 9 rebounds in the last game without Porzingis in the lineup. So a lot of different ways you can get on Celtics player props here for tonight. That's for sure. All right, Scott, let's get over to the next game of the night. Still have quite a few to get through here. Let's go to the Toronto Raptors. They are in Brooklyn here to take on the Nets. Nets currently a 1.5 point favorite, total sitting at 224. Looking at the injury report for this game, for the Toronto Raptors, pretty clean injury report. Only person of significance I think that is out is Christian Koloko. He's dealing with a respiratory issue. And for the Brooklyn Nets, Nick Claxton is questionable here tonight. Cam Johnson, I did see, was present at shoot-around, so he's officially probable. Ben Simmons is out, and then Cam Thomas is also doubtful here tonight. He's dealing with the left ankle sprain, so keep that in mind here for the Brooklyn Nets. So Brooklyn right now, -1.5, Scott, as a home favorite against the Toronto Raptors. What do you think about this side?
This game is going to be such a war the entire way through. I see this game coming down the wire. I see a lot of money on the over. Both teams aren't playing for anything, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just checking right now. Let me see here. So yeah, they did. The Raptors are eliminated officially, and also I should just mention this as well. Chicago is also eliminated as well. But Brooklyn, they still have something to play for here tonight.
They do. Okay. So I guess based on that, I'm going to lean to the Nets because I believe the Nets did beat Orlando in this group stage. So I do think that the Nets actually, as you said before, are technically playing for something. They're not getting in. Their point differential is not good enough, but they were able to beat Orlando, so maybe that does help. I think for this one, I am going to lean to the under. I don't agree with the total move. I think that this total is a bit high, and the Nets offensively have been okay for the most part lately, not amazing. But defensively, it's still a pretty good unit. And I do think that Toronto offensively can go into some droughts on occasion. Defensively, they're okay. I'm going to lean to the Nets based on the overall motivation angle, but I think this total's too high. I'm going to lean to the under.
Brooklyn 7-1-1 against the spread at home this season. They are 5-4 to the over, so nothing of significance there.
They're basically never laying in those games, but yes, they are 7-1.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, let me see if I can filter that down to favorite. Nets.
They were favored against Chicago, and they covered that. But I think that was they might be the only game they were favored in at home all year long.
So they were favored against the Wizards by 7. Covered that by a point.
Yeah, they won by 8.
They were favored against the Magic by 2.5. They won that game by 20.
Okay.
And they were
that's
favored
a hell of
by
a
7.
win, by the way. You beat Orlando by 20. That's a hell of a win.
Yeah. They were favored by 7.5 against the Heat. I think that was a game in the back-to-back where no Butler and
So I was just dead wrong. They've actually been favored at home by in a
4
couple of spots.
times.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, so yeah, no, you're good. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. So, I mean, they've been one of the better teams against the spread this season. Raptors, just looking at their road numbers here. 4-3 against the spread, 4-4 to the total, 3-5 straight up are the Raptors. So, I'll lean here with the Nets. Again, they still have something to play for here if they want they're very slim chance of getting into the quarterfinals for the play-in tournament. But I agree with you. I think that for the Nets, I think that if they're going to win this game, I think it has to be a low scoring affair, especially with the injuries that they are dealing with. To their scores, we saw Cam Thomas at the beginning of the year where he's just dropping again 30 plus points per game. Cam Johnson should be out there here tonight, but again, I think this is a probably a lower scoring game here. So I like the Nets here tonight. I'll take the 1.5. Or sorry, lay the 1.5, and then also with you on the under. Player props in this game here, Scott. Anything you're looking at?
I'm trying to think of who I think has the somewhat big game for the Nets. I like the rebounds for Claxton. I think once again in a lower scoring game, I'm going to gravitate more to rebounds. So I think Claxton has a good game there. And
Yeah.
Toronto, they don't really have much size in the interior. Pirtle's fine, but he doesn't really give you any offensive threat. So I do think Claxton can cheat and potentially kind of try to cherry pick some rebounds because Pirtle can't shoot. So that's going to help out. But I'm going to look for more for rebounds props. I don't mind a sneaky play on Lonnie Walker, who's been in really good form lately. Had a great game against Chicago. I think he could be a nice bench piece to look for. I think Claxton's going to rim protect well because Toronto, as an outside shooting team, I don't believe it's that great at outside jumpers. So I do think that you're looking at Toronto trying to crash the paint, and I do think that Claxton can get some blocks. I'm trying to think if I want to go with Siakam or Barnes to have the good game. I don't mind Barnes' PRA. That's just been a good prop all season long. I think that's probably worth a look.
Yeah, Scotty Barnes has been really good, at least rebounds and assists when I do back him. That number is usually at around 13.5. The market usually doesn't adjust for it. I know he didn't get there against Cleveland, where he only had 8 rebounds and 3 assists, but prior to that, 10 rebounds, 6 assists against the Chicago Bulls, 12 rebounds, 4 assists against the Pacers, 7-9 against the Detroit Pistons. Just to put this in the context, I know the Raptors are one of the slower paced teams in the league, but they even put up 121 points against the Chicago Bulls on Friday night. So just imagine what Boston is going to do here tonight against that Chicago Bulls team. But yeah, Claxton does play. I do like his rebounding. I'm with you on that. I didn't like anything else as far as player props in this game. All right. Next game, let's go over to the Western Conference now. That's all the East games. I think the West is a lot more easier to break down as far as scenarios and what's going on. So let's start here with the OKC Thunder. They are traveling to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Currently, the line is -3 in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves with a total of 229. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels is out. He's dealing with that right ankle sprain, and that is pretty much it. I don't see one for the OKC Thunder. That's weird. Yeah, okay. I don't see an injury report for the OKC Thunder. Let me see if there's
I see
one
them
on
being
the
clean.
Okay. -3 in favor of the home team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's look at the scenarios here for both of these teams. So for Minnesota, they have 2 scenarios here. They clinch a Group C if the following occurs. They get the victory here tonight, and Sacramento loses, and then they get the tiebreaker over Sacramento and the Golden State Warriors. And then they clinch a wild card spot if they win here tonight and they finish second in the Minnesota victory and finishes second in group and win tiebreakers over any of the second place teams from other groups with a 3-1 record. So this is pretty much saying they need to score points to get those point differential if they want to clinch a wild card spot against the other teams in the groups that are also 3-1. But they clinched a group with a victory here tonight. And if Sacramento loses and they get the tiebreaker over Sacramento and Golden State. So they're in a win scenario here. For OKC, let me see where they are in the group here. So they've already been eliminated. So OKC is just trying to play spoiler here tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Scott, let's start with the side here, -3.
I think I'm going to lean to Minnesota. I don't feel great about it, but we've talked about it before. I know it's still a regular season game and teams still want to win. I'm not saying that the Thunder are going to actively punt the game because they don't actually have to play for anything, but I do think motivation matters. And Minnesota's great at home. Now, I will point out OKC is great on the road as well. I believe they're
Mhm.
6-1 straight up on the road. Minnesota 7-1 straight up at home. I guess the problem that I have with OKC is I'm not sure if they have enough size to fully combat Cat and to combat Rudy. And I do think that even though Chet's been great this year, that's one guy. Like they don't
Yeah.
have any real depth in the front line. If Chet gets into foul trouble, can they handle that? Probably not, based on how the roster's constructed. Shout out to Chet, by the way, who's been incredible so far this season. But I do
Yep.
think looking at the spot, it should be a very fun matchup between Shea and Ant. But I'm going to lean to Minnesota. They're at home. They're playing for something. It's not easy, but I do think that 3 is a little bit low. This is going to be a close game, though. Should be a lot of fun. I kind of wish this game was on TV instead of the Milwaukee-Miami game, as crazy as that
Mhm.
might sound, but I would
Yeah.
love to watch this game on TV. I'm going to lean to Minnesota.
Minnesota 7-1 straight up, 7-1 against the spread, like you mentioned. Their first loss, both straight up and ATS, came against the Sacramento Kings in their last game, where they got buried 124-111 by the Sacramento Kings. But other than that, they've been solid at home, and they've played some quality opponents at home as well. Have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They played Denver at home. They beat Boston at home. They beat the Sixers at home. I guess you could throw the Knicks in there. Pelicans are a
Well,
average
to be
team.
fair about the Sixers, Embiid didn't play, but yes.
Yeah. That's true. So yeah, I think with Minnesota, they have something to play for here tonight. I think this number is a little bit short. I think I get the respect for the OKC Thunder, right? They've been great so far this season. Like you mentioned, they've also been great on the road as well. This again, a great matchup to watch here tonight. I'll go with the T Wolves here tonight, -3. Total sitting at 229 in this game here, Scott. Any thoughts on the total?
I think I'm going to lean over. I know that I've been leaning more to unders in games that matter, but and I know Minnesota's a great defensive team, but McDaniels being out is massive. He's a
Hmm.
great defensive player. And I just think that you're looking at what OKC loves to do. They operate a lot with their guards. And I do think that you're looking at a spot where if they can take Gobert away from the basket, Chet's been shooting well from 3. You're looking at Shea, who can get whatever matchup he wants. But McDaniels is that Swiss Army knife defender, and they don't have it. And we saw the Kings bury this team, especially offensively. I believe it was Mike Brown in the post-game press conference. I don't know if you heard this, but Sabonis was asking for them to call a specific play in the second half a lot. They ran the
Hmm.
play 17 times in the second half,
Yeah.
17 times. And they got pretty much whatever look they wanted because Fox was getting screens on both sides. They spaced it out, and they were able to get a lot of mismatches with Fox getting a running start. I can see OKC borrowing that. I think Dagnall's smart enough to borrow a play or two that succeeded against the same opponent if needed. But simply put, with McDaniels being out, I think that Minnesota's defensive numbers are extremely trappy, or I should say
Hmm.
misleading, because McDaniels is a big piece of that defensive core. I'm going to lean to the over. OKC's a good team. They don't guard anybody. So I think that's going to be, once again, a result of a high scoring game. I'm going to lean to the over because McDaniels being out's big, and I feel like the markets haven't fully adjusted to it.
I'm trying to pull up if I can find their defensive rating with and without Jaden McDaniels this season. Let's see here. So 11 games with him, their defensive rating is
I got to assume it's like top 3,
109.8.
top 4.
And then without him, it's actually better,
Really?
102.8. Yeah.
That's
Uh
shocking.
yeah, they're giving up 108.4 points without him, and then 115.6 with him. But again, you would have to probably dig into who they've played in those games. I think like one of those games is probably the Sixers without Embiid, and they're probably fortunate to play some of those teams that didn't have stars out there. So I think it's probably been like the last 5 or 6 games here. So um yeah, so Pelicans, I'm guessing that was probably without Zion. New York Knicks, I think the Knicks were in a back-to-back situation in that game. Sixers, like you mentioned, without Joel Embiid. But yeah, I mean, look, they've been solid at home. They've only given up an average of 101 points per game at home, have the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I didn't have a feel on the total. Maybe just a Minnesota team total over for me as well, again, because they need the points again. But nothing much on that. Player props in this game, or Scott, what are we looking at?
I'll go with the star power. Give me Ant to have a big game. I think Shea has a good game as well. Chet, I believe it's a homecoming for Chet. Isn't he from Minnesota initially? I
He
think.
looks like a guy that's from Minnesota.
I think he's from Minnesota. So Chet can be in line for maybe a good game, but I am concerned about a bit of foul trouble there. Chet is, unfortunately, ESPN doesn't tell me his hometown. Let me just see this.
Well, Kawan
Sorry.
pointing out that Chet from Minnesota players play well from. So I guess he is from
Yeah,
Minnesota.
he's from Minneapolis. So that's what I thought. So I think he's in line for a good game. But I do think that for this spot for player props, give me great players to show up in big games. Give me Ant to have a massive game.
Yeah, I think Ant and Shea.
Yeah,
Maybe 30+ points for each of those. If you want to do a same game parlay for both of those guys, I mean, it might not be huge odds there, but Ant's at 26.5 right now, and then SGA's already at 30.5 at -130. So, yeah, maybe if we want to put a same game parlay there, but I want to get behind somebody's rebounds here, whether that's
Rudy?
Cat or Rudy
Cat?
Gobert. But anytime I get behind Rudy Gobert on his rebounds, I always get burned.
I refuse to do it after last year, so I've stayed away.
I think it was last year where it was like I think it was my first or second bet on Rudy Gobert rebounds, and then he got ejected. I think I messaged you at that point. I was like, man, I had this Rudy Gobert rebounds, and then he just got ejected like within the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. Let me see how Cat has done against.
Well, who do you think's going to guard Chet most likely?
It's probably Cat, don't you think? Like, I don't think that.
I think Chet's going to spend a lot of time at the 3-point line in this game.
Yeah. Yes. The Cat
So
doesn't
if you
have a
think
lot
Cat
of
gets
rebounds.
dragged away, then you want Gobert because Gobert is going to be uncontested for a lot of these rebounds.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert. But his rebounding props at 11.5, and no, I'm gonna stay away.
If Cat does get taken away from the basket, Rudy can end up with like a massive 15 rebound game.
Yeah, so like over the last 7 games for Rudy Gobert against the Thunder, he's had 10, 14, 18, 21, 17, 17, and 20.
Sounds right. I mean, that's kind of what I'm anticipating. So
oh wait, there's more. 16. So as a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves last season, 3 games, 16 rebounds, 15 rebounds, and then the game that I mentioned, I probably got ejected where he ended up with 4 rebounds in 9 minutes.
I think that would be a potential. I don't know if that's an official ladder or not, but I do think Rudy should have a really, really good rebounding game.
Let's see what his all rebounds are. Where are you? All right. So for Rudy Gobert, 12.5 is at plus 115. 13.5 is at plus 170. That's the highest it lets me go.
Okay. I see 16 at plus 390, but
okay.
I mean, it's not like a huge plus, but I do think Rudy, if you look up at the end of this game, he's probably going to have like 12 and 15, if I had to guess.
All right, let's get over to the next game here, Scott. We have the Houston Rockets. They are in Dallas here tonight to take on the Mavericks. Right now, the line is sitting at, let me double check this line, 3.5 in favor of the Dallas Mavericks, total of 229.5. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the Houston Rockets, Dylan Brooks is probable, Tari Eason is probable, Jayshawn Tate is probable, and Fred VanVleet is probable as well. Amen Thompson is going to be out, but I did see from the local reporters that he has started on-court activities and should be back either later this week or probably early next week for Amen Thompson. So it'd be great to have him back. For the Mavericks, Maxi Kleber is the only one that is going to be out. And also, Derek Lively is questionable here tonight with a lower back contusion. So this scenario is pretty simple here for the Rockets. You win, you clinch the group. Dallas has already been eliminated, so they'll be looking to play spoiler, but for the Rockets, win the game, you win the group. Scott, let's start with the side here, minus 3.5 in favor of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I know Houston's 0 for on the road, but I'm going to take Houston money line in this game. I think it's a good spot. The Mavericks lost to the Clippers last game. Luka got injured, left early. He's going to play in this game, but he has a thumb injury, so I'm not sure if that's going to impact his shooting form. We'll see what happens. But Dallas really doesn't have any great options on the interior, and I think Şengün can have a massive game here. Şengün's had a great year. He's averaging 20.2 points per game, 9.1 rebounds, and he's shooting 56% 6.7% from the floor. If Şengün can get his free throw percentage to about 70, he could easily walk into like 23, 24 a game. It's kind of the next step for his game.
Mhm.
But I do think that you're looking at a spot where Houston is motivated. They're good defensively. Dallas is going to try to play spoiler at home, but I do like the fact that Houston, after facing off against some tough competition and having a bit of a struggle, losing to the Clippers, losing to the Lakers, and losing to the Warriors on the road, they responded well. They buried Memphis. They ended up burying Denver. Both games were at home, but still, I'm going to lean to Houston. I like what I've seen. I think that Dallas, once again, lacking some motivation, can be a bit of a problem. I think that Houston's pretty live to win this game. So I'll go with the Rockets.
Rockets defensively this season are tied, I should say, for the best defensive rating in the league with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And as much as we've shit on Dylan Brooks over the past several seasons on
He's
this
been very
podcast,
impactful.
he has been, especially on the defensive side of the basketball, obviously. But I mean, for this team to go from one of the worst defensive rated teams to one of the best, I know it's so early on. We're only about 14 games in for the Rockets. But I mean, that's a huge improvement for this Rockets team. And I think that's what's led to a lot of their victories here, especially at home. You mentioned that they haven't won a single road game yet, but they are 3-2 against the spread. So I'm all over the Rockets here. This is going to be my first official play on the Rockets, betting on them this season. They have all the motivation here. Again, like they mentioned, they win this game, they clinch the group. I agree 100% about what you mentioned about Şengün in this game. His points prop right now is at 20.5. He hasn't gotten to the 21 point mark against his Mavericks team, but again, he hasn't played a lot of minutes in those games either against the Mavericks. But this season has been a completely different story, right? Now you're seeing his minutes have been significantly increased this season. He's averaging 35.2 minutes per game. He's averaging 32.8 minutes per game over the course of the regular season. And over the last 5 games, he's averaging 35.2 minutes per game for the Rockets. So expect a big night from him scoring-wise, big night for him rebounding the basketball, especially if Derek Lively's not able to play here tonight. I really like the Rockets in the spot. I'll take the plus 3.5 sprinkle on their money line here as well. Any thoughts on the total here, Scott? For at 229.5 is the updated number.
Dallas doesn't really guard anybody, but I like the under in this game. Houston defensively is great. And I do think that Luka being, once again, maybe a little bit compromised with the thumb, and I wonder about the motivation. Houston is built so far this season through their defense, and I think that they're going to show up, at least for a pride perspective, because point differential doesn't matter. Win, and they win the group, and defensively, they've been fantastic. So I'm going to link to the under.
Yeah, I agree. Just some news about the Brooklyn Nets here tonight. Cam Thomas officially ruled out. Nick Claxton is available to play here tonight as well. So we mentioned Nick Claxton props, so I think this might be a good opportunity take those here tonight. Also, his blocks and steals have been profitable as well. So if you want to look at it that way. Yeah, I agree with you. Again, this team defensively has been really good. On the road, they're 3-2 to the under, only averaging about 219 points per game. On the season, they're 10-4 to the under. So this team, again, like I mentioned, being one of the best defensive rated teams, that's going to lead to unders here tonight. So, I mean, don't be surprised, Scott, that maybe we get closer to game time that, let's give Luka a day off here and let him rest that thumb. And he doesn't end up playing here tonight. I'm not saying that I have official information, but I think with the way we've seen the injury report go in the association, I wouldn't be shocked if that does happen. But player props in this game, anything else other than Şengün you're looking at?
I'm trying to think of I expect to have a relatively good game. I don't mind Van Vliet double-double or assists in the spot. I do think even though Houston is a very good defensive team, Dallas is definitely not. I can see Houston having some moments offensively. If Şengün is going to go over the 20-plus points, sure, some of the points are going to be based off isolation in the post, but the pick-and-roll game with Van Vliet's been very solid. I don't mind Van Vliet assists in this game.
Dallas to the point guard position are giving up close to 26 points per game and also 9 assists per game as well. So if you want to go double-double off Fred VanVleet or just plays assist alone, that number was at 9.5. I think I saw that plus money at plus 110. That now it's down to plus 105 for Fred VanVleet. And again, he's been filling it up as far as assists over the past several games. Just quickly read his numbers here. Over the last 5 games, he's averaging 11 assists per game. He's been in double-digit assists in 4 of the last 5 games for the Houston Rockets. So, yeah, I love that. All right, next game on the board here, Scott. Let's get over to the last game on the board. The Warriors, they are in Sacramento here tonight to take on the Kings. Kings currently sitting as a 1.5 point home favorite with a total of 235.5. Looking at the injury report in this game, for the the Golden State Warriors.
Draymond's back,
I,
so
Draymond should be back in this game. I don't see an injury report submitted for them yet. All right, so for the Sacramento Kings, Keegan Murray is doubtful here tonight. He's dealing with a back injury. Alex Lynn is out as well. He's dealing with an ankle injury, and Keon Ellis is also dealing with an ankle injury as well. So he will not be playing in this game. Um, I was looking at this morning. I was like, man, how many games has it been that Draymond's been out? And like you mentioned, he's back here tonight after serving his suspension here tonight. Looking at the scenario for both of these teams, let's start here with the Golden State Warriors. So the Warriors clinch Group C if one of the following occurs: they win here tonight and Minnesota loses, or Golden State Warriors win here tonight and they win the tiebreaker over Sacramento and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They also clinch a wild card spot if they win here tonight and they finish second in the group with the wins with the tiebreaker scenario over the other second place teams in the other group. So something similar to what Minnesota for that wild card spot. And then Sacramento clinches the group if they win here tonight. Simply similar to the Rockets. They win tonight, they clinch the group, or Minnesota wins and then Sacramento wins tiebreakers over both Minnesota and Golden State Warriors. So pretty simple for Sacramento. We'll keep it that way. Sacramento wins, they clinch the group, and then Golden State falls into the wild card spot where they need a point differential for them to qualify for the quarterfinals of the in-season tournament here, Scott. So right now, -1.5 in favor of the Kings. What are you thinking?
I'm going to take Golden State. I don't feel great about it, but Golden State is 2-0 this season against the Kings. I'm tired of picking the Kings against this team. They just don't win against this team. And even though they went to 7 games last year, they had game 7 at home. They blew it. Curry dropped 50. It just feels like even though Mike Brown had a lot of experience against the Warriors and he learned a lot and he based a lot of his system off of what the Warriors did there, it's a little bit of like student versus master type of thing where I just think Steve Kerr has his number. And I just think that until I see the Kings actually beat the Warriors, is there a mental block there with them losing game 7 at home by 20 and then they immediately lose the next 2 games in the regular season against this team? I just think Golden State has their number, just simply put. I think for this case, I'm going to go with the Warriors. I think it's going to be a very close game, a very fun game. I like the under because I do think with this being basically a winner-take-all game in the group stage, you are going to see a bit of a more intense game based on defense. But I'm going to go with Golden State. I know it's going to sound unpopular, but Draymond being back is a big deal. I'm not sure if he's going to be on a min restriction. I doubt it. I think he'll probably play the full game here. But I do think if I had to pick a side and a total, I'd go with Golden State, and I would go with the under. Until I see Sacramento beat this team this season, I'm not going to lay points with them. Give me the Warriors to win, and give me the under.
The Warriors have won 10 out of the last 11 head-to-head meetings in the regular season against the Sacramento Kings team. And like Scott alluded to, they did beat the Kings. And I think that was a game there De'Aaron Fox did not play for the... Yeah, so he was out with that ankle injury against the Warriors, and the Warriors had all of their guys in that game. But that was an ugly shooting night for the Sacramento Kings. They only shot 40.9%. So if De'Aaron Fox was there, maybe it's a different story. But again, going back to the regular season matchups, the last 11, the Warriors have won 10 of the last 11. That's not including the playoff series last season. So yeah, I think it's Warriors here for me as well. I'll take the +1.5 for them. Total, I think with Draymond back here tonight and the way the Sacramento Kings do play, I'm leaning towards the over, maybe like a first half over, and maybe you see the screws tightening up a little bit, at least on the defensive side in the second half. But I think
the
when
entire
these two
premise
teams
that I
get
had
together,
for the card tonight was in the meaningful games, it's going to be a playoff atmosphere. So this is one of the most meaningful games on the card. I'm not going to pivot, but I understand if you're scared of the under. with Fox and with
Yeah.
Curry. I get it, but I got to follow what I
Yeah.
said I was going to do when the show started.
Yeah, I'll lean towards the over in this game, but I'll take the Warriors on the money line here to get the job done. And again, Sacramento could still qualify, I believe, even if they do lose the game here tonight. Any player props you're looking at here, Scott?
Curry over. I mean, they can't guard this guy. I
Yeah.
feel like Curry's in line to go for a massive game. I think that Draymond assist is worth a look. I am wondering how the Kings are going to try to deal with the Draymond, all the dribble handoffs and stuff like that. It's a lot to handle for any team. So I think that he's going to be a solid performer in this game. He might be motivated as well. First game back in about a week, so I think, or 2 weeks, I think he'll be ready to go. I feel like I have to be scared of Sabonis because he's struggled against Golden State in the last couple of meetings. He was good in the last meeting, I should say, but we saw the playoff series that Looney kind of owns him. I don't mind Looney rebounds in this game. Looney's just done a very good job against Sabonis in the last couple of outings, so I think that Looney rebounds is worth a look. But for the most part, I'm not going to overthink this. Give me Curry points. I think Curry's going to have a great game.
Yeah, Looney's rebounds are at 8.5 at -150, and they have Sabonis listed at 13.5 for his rebounds. But you kind of look at his game long; he's actually been pretty good rebounding the basketball, at least against the Warriors. I'm curious to see what his points and rebounds are for Sabonis here tonight, because let me see.
By the way, I'll read off Sabonis' last couple of games against Golden State rebounding wise as you pull that up. So
33 and
regular
a half.
season, he's been good, but I mean, we saw the playoffs and how that played itself out. Is this a playoff game atmosphere? Maybe. He had 11 rebounds last game against the Warriors in 37 minutes. Had 18 the game before that, 22, 14, 14. So he's had some big games against Golden State. But it seems like the last couple of meetings, it just feels like Golden State has had a good understanding of Sabonis' limitations. And I do think that he might struggle in this matchup because of it.
Yeah, that number is spot on for his points and rebounds right now, 33.5. There was 2 games in there. His first 2 games with when he got traded from the Pacers to the Kings, where he had 19 and 14, which obviously is right at 33. But I'm gonna dig a little more into it, man. I'm worried about the pace in this game. I feel like these 2 teams will, at least in the first half, probably try to get up and down. But all right, any other player props?
Not really. I could see a Fox versus Curry shootout here. So that's another game, or at least I should say matchup I'm really tempted to just back both players over. Kind of like the Shea and the Ant matchup. But no, that's really it. I'll stick with the star power.
I think you'd put a parlay together of Steph, De'Aaron Fox, Shea, and Anthony Edwards 30+ points. I wonder what that looks like. All
I'll
right.
pull that up now.
All right. So that is the last game here for tonight. Again, reminder, it is the last day of the NBA in-season tournament group play. So there's a lot at stake. If you're on our Discord, I'll go ahead and drop the link again for all the different scenarios I need to kind of play out here tonight for some of these teams here, so you can guys can read through it and help you in your handicapping as well. Let's get into our lock and dog here for tonight, Scott, and then we'll put together our underdog fantasy entry here. So you want to lead us off with your lock and dog, or you want me to go?
Sure, I'll go first. For my
Sure.
lock, I see a 13 available. I'll lay the massive number. Give me Boston minus 13. They're going to kill this team, as far as I'm concerned. They have all the motivation to dominate. The Bulls have nothing to play for. The coach is probably going to get fired in the next week. I mean, this team has quit on the coach. They've quit on each other. They had a team meeting after the first game of the season. Surprisingly, haven't had one since. They probably needed about 7 more since that point. But I'm going to go with the Celtics to win comfortably. Give me Boston minus 13. They're also incentivized to run up the score because of point differential. I think Boston wins this game by at least 20. So give me the Celtics minus the 13.5, or 13, I mean, which I did find. For the dog, I had a couple of choices. I could have gone player prop, or I could have gone with a side. I think I am going to go with the side, though. Give me the Rockets money line at around plus 150. I like the spot. Simply put, I think that Luka's finger issue can maybe limit his effectiveness. Houston's a great defensive team. Dallas has really nobody on the interior, and Lively is questionable, but I do think that Şengün could have a massive game here. I like how really quickly the Rockets bought in to Udoka's defensive system, and it's been very beneficial to them and to the franchise in general. So I'm going to go with Houston here. My runner-up was probably Trey 30-plus points because Cleveland has not been great at defending the point guard position this season. But I do think that I'm going to go with the Rockets' money line. Dallas nothing to play for based on this tournament. They might still care, but I do think Dallas is a little bit fraudulent because they really don't guard anybody, and Houston is a very bad matchup because they're physical and they're very, very willing to challenge anybody on any given night. It just feels like Houston has a lot of pride, something that we did not see at all under Silas for the last couple of years. I'll take Houston to win its first road game at about plus 150.
Accountability is what's
Yeah,
been
that's the word.
said
That's a
about
good word to use. Yeah.
for the locker room for the Rockets after pretty much what guys were able to get away with under the Steven Silas regime.
And
So
Kevin Porter not being there has helped out the defense tremendously.
100%. Yeah, I agree. All right, for my lock here tonight, I am going to go with the Knicks team total over 116.5. Like I mentioned, Charlotte, the worst defensive rated team in the association. 2 games this season already. They've played head to head, and the Knicks put up 120 plus points in each of those matchups against the Hornets. And now, no LaMelo Ball. I think that Knicks will smash them. Again, a healthy squad here for the Knicks here as well. They have something to play for here as well. So I'm going to go with the Knicks team total over 116.5. For my dog, I'm agreeing with you on the Rockets here, but I am going to take it a step further, and I am going to take the Rockets on the money line plus Şengün over 20.5 points. That gets you to plus 262.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So Rockets money line and over 20.5 points for Şengün here tonight. That gets you to plus 262 as my dog here for tonight. Were you able to get that 30 plus point parlay together?
Yeah, I was building it, but I sorry, I was waiting for the site to cooperate with me.
No, wait.
I mean,
Let me go over to.
you can start the underdog stuff. It's going to overlap probably, and we'll move from there.
All right. So again, go to underdogfantasy.com. Make sure to use our promo code SGPN. If you don't have an account yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Get over there, make an account, support the network. We do a lot of things, or not a lot of things, but everything we do here for free on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Do us a favor. If you don't have an account already with Underdog Fantasy, go to underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN. And you'll get a 100% deposit bonus of up to $100 courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. So you guys can come play alongside with us. All right, Scott, let's start our Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight. Where do you want to go first? You want to go Trey first?
Yeah, we can either go Trey first, or if you want to do Şengün first, we can do that too.
Okay, so let's start with Şengün because we both like him here tonight. So,
by the way, I pulled up the parlay. It comes out to about 13-1.
Okay, thought it would be a lot higher than that, but I think a lot of those guys are like right at like
Curry, Fox, Shea, and Edwards all to have 30 plus is about 13-1. Curry and Fox's default lines are at 29.5, and you're looking at Shea's default line being at 30.5. So that's why it's relatively, I don't want to say cheap, but that's why it's 13-1.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go Şengün, higher 20.5 points is our first entry. Where else do you want to go? You want to go Trey?
Sure. Trey's been in great form. It's really tough to go against him.
Yeah, 27.5 points here tonight for Trey. We'll go higher on that. What else did we like here for tonight?
I mentioned Claxton, but since he was questionable about 10 minutes ago, I'm not sure if they have props available for Claxton.
He's in. Let me see if it's they have it up yet.
I know he's in. I'm saying I'm not sure if Underdog updated.
What are we looking at? Rebounds?
Yeah.
I see 9 rebounds.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
Or do you want to go spicy and get the double-double?
Sure, let's get spicy.
Right.
Let's go with the 1.5x on the higher than half a double-double.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so we'll go Şengün, higher 20.5 points. Trae Young, higher 27.5 points. And then Nick Claxton, double-double higher on that. That $100 entry. I don't think
was that like 900.
Right. Why is it saying $7,500?
Did we find a glitch in the system?
Oh, wait. I added an extra 0. All right. $100 entry will get you $750. I actually put in 1,000 there, but all right, $100 entry there will get you $750 dollars courtesy of Underdog for our Underdog entry here for tonight. All right, that is going to do it. Almost an hour and a half here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, the last day of the in-season tournament as far as group play goes. So a lot of scenarios that we broke down here, different ways to attack a lot of these games here for tonight. So hopefully we found some winners here. But Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, not really. Looking forward to the games tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow with Terrell.
Yeah. We'll be back at the usual time with Scott and Terrell tomorrow for the NBA Gambling Podcast, 11 a.m. Eastern. So look out for us then. For the 63 of you watching here tonight, make sure you smash that like button for us before you guys get out of here. If you haven't already subscribed to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out and grow the show here as well. Make sure to follow Scott on Twitter. That's at Reichel Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow for the NBA Gambling Podcast, 11 a.m. Eastern with Terrell and Scott. So look out for the guys then. Till then, good luck with your bets here tonight. Let's break these books off and let it ride.